First, we're going to break down all of the election scams that Donald Trump is running. Clear and present election scams with Fox, scams with Elon Musk, scams having fake union workers and fake firefighters standing behind him at his various events. We will break all of that down. We'll talk about the legal implications. We're also going to talk about the legal implications of Washington, D.C. federal judge Tanya Chutkan releasing approximately 1,900 documents from the appendix in special counsel Jack Smith's brief regarding why Donald Trump should not have absolute immunity. Michael Popok has scoured all 1,900 pages, a lot of redaction still, but a lot of new information, a lot of very compelling, detailed information. We will break it down. Then some very big election cases right now in Georgia and Florida, as well as across the nation right now, as MAGA once again is flooding the zones with tons of litigation, but the pro-democracy forces once again are prevailing. We'll break it all down, bring in Michael Popok. This is Legal AF. So much to talk about. We should get into it right away. Popok, how are you?
Yeah, great to have you here. I like the way we've not to self-compliment. I like the way we've organized today. I mean, the Republicans and MAGA require it, but I woke up feeling really great today about at the intersection of law and politics on the politics side, because we're going to talk about all of the ways that Democrats and former Republicans or current Republicans who are not MAGA are repelling the attempts by MAGA early, as opposed to late in 2020, to throw sand in the gears of democracy, to screw around with vote registration, to screw around with vote counting, to screw around with vote certification in all the states, all at once, all at the same time. Which creates some anomalies. We'll talk about two competing judges in the same courthouse addressing almost the same set of events and how they addressed it. We'll talk about that when we get to Georgia. But the Democrats joining together, holding hands with Republicans against MAGA, that and early voting returns that are already happening in states where millions have already voted at the time that we're doing this live, is leaving me feeling tingly in a really, really good way about the chances of us, you and I, reporting, along with the rest of the Midas universe, on Madam President-elect Kamala Harris.
Look, when we built this network, when we built Legal AF, one of the things that was just very important to us was just being law and order. And our view was that shouldn't necessarily be tethered to a specific political party. And for so long, the Republican Party had tried to take that mantle that they were law and order. Donald Trump exposed that that was all a farce. And to your point, this pro-democracy law and order community, which right now is embodied in this Democrat classic Republican coalition versus MAGA, is a political realignment we talk about all the time on this network, but which is not being pulled because it's still based on outdated modalities and it's not being talked about on corporate media. But I guarantee you it will be the biggest story after the election. But let's dig into it, folks. Let's start off with the various election scams. Donald Trump goes on Fox and Friends. Fox has turned its entire network into a political action committee for Donald Trump. Donald Trump just going on the network now, bragging and gloating how he's going to be meeting with Rupert Murdoch later in the day. It should also be noted, as we see Donald Trump sitting there on the couch, it looks a little bit awkward how he's sitting and just the way he's sitting on. I suppose that's his suit. Other people have speculated otherwise, but let me just show you. This is Donald Trump saying he will be meeting with Rupert Murdoch shortly after that, and he will be telling Rupert Murdoch that he needs to stop having negative ads about Trump and stop saying negative things about Trump. Let's play it.
You know what the event I have now? No. A very big event. I'm going to see Rupert Murdoch.
Okay.
That's a big event. I don't know if he's thrilled that I say it.
Yeah, please tell him. Thank you.
I'm going to tell him something very simple because I can't talk to anybody else about it. Don't put on negative commercials for 21 days. Don't put them. And don't put on their horrible people that come and lie. I'm going to say, Rupert, please do it this way.
Right.
And then we're going to have a victory because I think everyone wants that.
And you're going to Outkick. It's a great channel that we have with Tyrus.
Oh, good.
There you go.
All right, Mr. President, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, man.
All right, we're going to step.
Looks like an individual in hospice care with 4 caretakers or nurses by his side. Notice how they tried to change that conversation very, very quickly right there. But he's just saying, look, I'm going to speak to the head of this network to collude in the election. I mean, he's said it. You heard him say it. Also, the hosts at Fox and the writers at Fox are now actually writing Donald Trump's speeches for him. How do we know that? Donald Trump says that they write his speeches for him. Here, play this clip.
You know, we have seen historically a lot of Democrats, they turn to the guys at Saturday Night Live or The Tonight Show. They write all their material. Your material was real funny. Who wrote it? Who helped you with it?
Well, I've had a lot of people helping. A couple of people from Fox, actually. I shouldn't say that, but they wrote some jokes. And for the most part, I didn't like any of them. But
Should we see some highlights? I think you did great.
Go ahead.
Watch.
By the way, he did not do great. He struggled to even read the words that were written for him by Fox writers. Also, I just thought the event was in such poor taste. They were making jokes about him sexually assaulting women as he was sitting next to a cardinal. I did a video about it earlier in the day. Frankly, shame on everybody at that event. I mean, I was watching that and I was just frankly grossed out. I was glad Vice President Kamala Harris in these times did not attend that event. Also, it should be noted when Vice President Kamala Harris agreed to do an interview with Fox, Fox edited the footage. Brett Baer actually edited footage where Donald Trump has always been saying, and we've been showing you this footage on the last Legal AF, where Trump says that he's going to send the United States military on the enemy within, people like Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, and people on the left who don't support him. Donald Trump says that he will use the military against them to round them up, and it's going to be bloody. Okay, folks, that should be incredibly disqualifying. And Vice President Kamala Harris raised that point on Fox. She went into enemy territory. What does Fox do? They edit out Donald Trump saying that, show a different clip and say, oh, Donald Trump didn't say that. The prosecutor that she is, she calls them out and goes, you manipulated the footage. And because she did that, Brett Baer had to admit that he aired the wrong clip. This is Brett Baer admitting that he did the wrong clip. Let's play it.
Harold, I did make a mistake, and I want to say that mistake. When I called for a soundbite, I was expecting a piece of the enemy from within, from Maria Bartiromo's interview, to be tied to the piece from your town hall, Harris, where you asked the former president about the enemy from within. It just had the piece about the town hall, and just take a listen to what I meant to roll.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
My point is that we asked him the question about that sentence and what he was trying to mean.
Final point, Michael Popok. And by the way, they would not have made that statement had Vice President Kamala Harris not called them out in real time and exposed it. They had to, because she put the pressure on them. You just lied to everybody. And even their own viewers were like, wait a minute, what'd you do?
And Midas drilled down on it.
Oh, absolutely. Final point, that town hall that he was referencing, that was an event that Fox tried to pretend had independent female voters from Georgia. False. It was an astroturfed event that was led by the Georgia Federation of Republican Women, a far right-wing MAGA group. It was just that group that was there, plus some other female MAGA groups that were there. That was never disclosed, and Fox would edit out during the questions. When the questioners would say, oh, I love you, we've been a long time supporter, they would edit that out, and they presented this as a town hall of just everyday women from Georgia
on the fence.
So on the fence. So and even the Georgia Federation of Republican Women, when they were called out by groups like Midas Touch and others, they then edited their Facebook post to say, super excited we have the opportunity to attend. It previously said, super excited that we got to organize this event with Fox. Also, all of the questioners were plants as well. Like, this is Lisa Cawley, president of the Fulton County MAGA Republican group, who was asking a question. Matthew Gertz pointed that one out. There she is. You see her asking the question. That's her profile shot on the MAGA website. So, Michael Popok, I wanted to go through all of that. Those are the Fox scams. And this is the one point. When the Supreme Court does things, though, like you have absolute immunity and the laws don't apply, to me, it has a cascading effect where it's like, well, then does anything matter? Do federal election laws matter? The message to Trump and Fox is you can get away with anything, and it's a free for all right now. Sorry for that long lead up.
No. That's our show. And I'll be long winded on something else during the course of the podcast. Let me unpack a few of those things that I found interesting and provide some color around them. First of all, I totally agree with you. Pick up your last point. Tone from the top is very important, and the tone from the top of the United States, is giving license to Donald Trump and those around him, and Fox News, who should know better after paying almost $1 billion in defamation damages to Dominion Voting Systems, and still on the hook in some other cases that we'll be reporting on during the course of the year that against them. The license, the permission, the ripping up of the social contract, the ripping up of election law, is because of the Chief Justice John Roberts Supreme Court. We look to the Supreme Court to tell us how to act and behave and what is criminal and what is not. And we have an emboldened Donald Trump who it will be his undoing, and it has been his undoing, because the lesson that he learned from the United States Supreme Court was not a nuanced one. It was, I can do any effing thing I want, especially during this campaign, and no one can stop me. And so that's in that mind. And we'll talk a little bit later about what we're watching with the incredibly shrinking and fatigued and gassed Donald Trump, who cannot keep up with the high motor and the flawless campaign strategy of one Kamala Harris. I mean, the split screen between the two to the American people in the waning days of this campaign, as we're making a closing argument, as Kamala is making a closing argument to earn their votes. One side is earning the votes of Americans on the ground in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia. The other one is literally barely phoning it in hand-picked environments with ringers in the audience or ringers on the interview bench or couch at Fox News, constantly canceling interviews where he's trying to match Kamala Harris, but he can't physically, mentally, emotionally, or otherwise. I don't know quite what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, as that bullet whizzed by his head, other than the person who died behind him. But ever since then, we've watched if we did a graph, it would just be completely down in terms of his mental capacity and his ability to perform and energy level, because something did happen. If it did happen. And every decision that he's made ever since has been terrible decision-making. From the first decision from Butler, Pennsylvania, J.D. Vance selection. The next decision to get into bed, no pun intended, with RFK Jr. How's that going? The third major decision was 26 minutes into the debate, which he did not prepare for, against Kamala Harris. He starts talking about they're eating your pets. That's all he had at the 26-minute mark. The next major decision is he decides, because Stephen Miller or others hand him the palm card, the cheat sheet, the constitutional law for dummy fascists, and he reads from it and says, Alien Enemies Act, we're under attack by 11 million illegal immigrants, and I'm going to use the U.S. military against the U.S. population in violation of laws I never thought I'd have to say out loud since I left law school, like the Posse Comitatus Act from like the Restoration period, in our Reconstruction period in our history after the Civil War. This is what we're, and then when he has no advisors around him, Susie Wiles and La Savita, his alleged putative campaign managers. He's his own campaign manager. Nobody can control him. And so they're like, maybe you don't want to keep saying enemies from within and pointing out Americans. All he's talking about is setting up Trump concentration camps and using the military against Americans. Taking everything we talk about on this show is about his conduct and behavior towards other Americans. We're not just Democrats. We're not just independents. We are American citizens. And we're watching a guy who's running for presidency, to be restored to the presidency, that wants to attack other Americans and people here under legal immigration status. So then you have the fake, the gaslighting that we like to talk about on the show. He's saying CBS should lose its license and be everybody there should go to jail because they edited some of Kamala Harris's interview on 60 Minutes. Well, 60 Minutes that he was too exhausted to attend. First time in 50 years, a person running for the presidency didn't do the 60 Minutes interview while he's canceling all the other interviews because he's exhausted. And then what happens with him? Bret Baier, he's basically fed the questions in advance when he does an interview with Fox News on that couch. He admits that at the Al Smith dinner that he's getting jokes written for him by, let me guess, we could all guess which anchors over at Fox he's getting jokes from. And then let's put Fox in jail. Fox sets up, as you said, a phony town hall. First of all, it was a little chilling to begin with. We need an all-women town hall with Donald Trump. Lock the door. I mean, I don't know why that is even appropriate in 2024 to stick all women in a room with Donald Trump, given his history. And then it turns out that it's mainly plants that are there brought in on buses by the Republican Party to ask him friendly softball questions. Then you fast forward to this week with the Al Smith dinner in New York, this white tie event that Kamala wisely, as her own campaign manager, wisely thought maybe I should just get votes in Wisconsin that day instead of going on the dais with, and I don't know if we have a photo of it, but this grim, it was almost like a Madame Tussauds wax museum. It was like an oil painting. You've got an embarrassed Mike Bloomberg who ran for the presidency. He's bright red during the entire Al Smith dinner. He's there. You've got a grimacing Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, behind Donald Trump's left shoulder. She took $500 million off him by proving that he's a persistent fraudster for the last 10 years in his business operation. You got Maria Bartiromo, speaking of Fox, who did the interview that Bret Baier was talking about, in which Trump doubled down on enemies from within. She's wearing her white gloves because it's a white tie event. She's the only one on the entire dais. She's clapping furiously. Is this an independent journalist? She's clapping furiously for Donald Trump during it. Everybody else that was there just stared straight ahead and didn't laugh at any of the jokes, whatever these jokes were. In front of the Cardinal of New York, Dolan, he starts talking about sex abuse, cursing, calls Kamala Harris, a retard in front of, and gets no laughs, right? And then he actually says out loud, those idiots that gave me these jokes. Right. Well, the idiot that's reading it is also, we're looking at your judgment as you're running for office. And the worst moment for me on that day is Al Smith with Melania, who I don't know how they got her to go there. She never cracked a smile. He actually took on, what do we call him now from Saturday Night Live? He's like the first puppy. He's Doug Emhoff, who's going to be the first man, and said, because, Emhoff has come out and said he had some problems in his marriage and that he had a relationship with somebody that worked for the family. And so Donald Trump decides it's a good idea to remind everybody about his own sexual abuse problems and saying, well, keep Doug Emhoff away from the nannies. And that thing landed like a lead balloon in the room with Melania behind him. What idiot thought it was a good idea to remind people about Donald Trump's own sexual assault history by bringing that up in a Catholic charity event? This is what we're watching, and this is, we can't have any more compelling distinction between where the two parties are at in 18 days to go than what we've just outlined here at the top of the show.
And that's why, though, you have to have surrounding what Donald Trump's doing, anti-American, anti-democracy, anti-human being, anti-decency, this vicious propaganda network of people who are committed to destroying our way of life, democracy. They don't want it. They look at Putin as their hero. They want America to be a satellite nation of Russia, and the Elon Musks and the Rupert Murdochs fancy themselves as the oligarchs where they're going to benefit from this system. They see under Biden-Harris bottom up, middle out as a threat to them, which is ridiculous. What, you can't buy 10 G5, G6 private jets? You can only buy 3 or 4. And this way, other Americans who you share this soil with can actually live in nice homes and raise their family without the fear that they're going to be homeless. That's the threat to these billionaires. So the billionaires need to find ways to try to divide us and pit us against each other and to create culture wars so that they can get people to vote against their own interests because they're so built up in this frenzy of hate because the corporate media that these billionaires control are telling them to feel that way. And I'll give you this example as well. Elon Musk, for example, has entered the building, unfortunately, in this election in a very big way for Donald Trump. All of the stuff that the right wing was talking, it's always projection and confession. All of the things that they were saying that, oh, this is what Jack Dorsey was doing with Twitter, and how dare you do this, when that actually was not taking place. And look, every company has its flaws, and Twitter certainly had its flaws, but it was being run in a socially responsible way in the interest of shareholders with transparency, you know, at the time. But now Elon Musk just out there using Twitter, which is now X, and using all of his resources as a vehicle to try to get Trump elected, because Elon Musk would view Donald Trump as his puppet. And Elon Musk says, now I can actually control the United States because I can control Donald Trump. So one of the things that Elon Musk has been doing is he's been pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into all of these various groups. And then the groups create subgroups with fictitious names to try to divide Americans. They'll have certain messaging that goes to the Muslim community, certain messaging that goes to the Jewish community that are just opposite kind of messages as well, to try to pit the people against each other. There'll be messages to this group or that group, gun owners. And oftentimes what they're doing now, and the Midas Touch Network exposed it. Open Secrets did as well. They did a great, I want to give them a shout out too. Elon Musk funneled money to this group that created another group called Progress 2028 to make it seem like, oh, well, maybe Trump's got Project 2025, but what's more dangerous is the Progress 2028 agenda. And so they created this fake thing that doesn't exist. And then they send out these mailers and digital ads pretending to be supporters of Vice President Kamala Harris and saying, look at all the great things that she's going to do. We're so thrilled that when she gets into office, she's going to make the streets safe by taking away your guns. She's promised a mandatory gun buyback program. So just get ready to take away your guns. But don't worry, it's going to make everything better. This is what a great thing that Kamala Harris is going to do. One of the other things that she's proposed is she's going to make sure that you're paying for all of the health care of undocumented migrants. And that's going to be so great because here in America, we want to make sure that everybody gets the top health care, even if you have to wait on lines longer. We're all in this together. And they pretend that this is messaging coming from her. They know it's very controversial messaging that's out there that can make people reluctant to vote for her. It's not her messaging as all. And they're sending these mailers to people's homes to try to freak them out to not vote for her. This is going on as well, which in my opinion would be another clear violation of FEC law. You can't falsely represent endorsements of people or candidates when you're actually doing the opposite. That's called fraud. And I want to talk more about that, but we got to take our first quick break of the show. But we want to let you know everything that's going on here. And a way to take a deeper dive, go to the Legal AF YouTube channel. Just search Legal AF wherever on YouTube and make sure you subscribe to it as well. It is a rocket ship on its way to 500,000 subscribers. I think it could get there this month. Let's see if it can get 500,000 subs. In the description below, you'll see a link as well, which makes it one click away. Let's take our first quick break of the show.
Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. That is until I found ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Now look, I won't lie. I was a bit on the fence about pre-alcohol initially. But then, while hanging out with my fantasy football draft crew over at our favorite Jersey Shore sports bar, I gave it a shot. And believe me, it's the real deal. I spent the entire next day doing all my favorite things with my family, including a long hike on our favorite trail. I kept hearing about pre-alcohol, and I wondered what it was actually like. But now that I've tried it, I believe the hype. And with their GMO technology, they will release different products that help address toxic byproducts of modern living in the gut. Go to zbiotics.com/legalaf to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LegalAF at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/legalaf and use the code LegalAF at checkout for 15% off. This podcast is sponsored by Delete Me. Have you or someone you know been a victim of identity theft? Harassed, stalked, doxxed? I recently changed banks and opened new accounts, only to quickly have bad people use that opportunity to try to hack into my online banking profile. And with all my hot takes and podcast episodes every week, my privacy and that of my family's remains a priority. Ever wonder how much of your personal data is out there on the internet for anyone to see? More than you think. Your name, contact info, social security number, and home address, even information about your family members, all being compiled by data brokers and sold online. Data brokers make a profit off of your data. Your data is a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft and phishing. As a person who exists publicly, especially as someone who shares my legal and political opinions online, I am hyper aware of safety and security. And it's easier than ever to find personal information about people online. All this data hanging out on the internet can have actual consequences in the real world. Over the last decade, the U.S. has witnessed steady growth in politically motivated, threatening online behavior, peaking around election cycles. Delete Me and its research shows that the volume of personal data on individuals available online has tripled between 2019 and 2023 to an average of over 525 pieces of personal info per person available free or for as little as $5 per profile. You cannot always control whether you are a target, but you can make it harder for politically motivated threat actors to escalate threats by taking a proactive approach to the security of your personal information. That's why I personally recommend Delete Me. Delete Me is a subscription service that removes your personal info from hundreds of data brokers. Sign up and provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. Delete Me sends you regular personalized privacy reports showing what info they found, where they found it, and what they removed. Delete Me isn't just a one-time service. Delete Me is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. To put it simply, Delete Me does all the hard work of wiping your and your family's personal information from data broker websites. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and use promo code LegalAF at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and enter code LegalAF at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/legalaf, code LegalAF.
Thank you to those pro-democracy sponsors. Again, the discount codes are in the description below. Before we took that break, Michael Popok, I was talking about all of these various ops that we're seeing the MAGAs run. You also saw Marjorie Taylor Greene and Elon Musk, who we were talking to as well, starting to spread more lies and, frankly, defamatory statements about Dominion voting again. They're doing the voting is rigged again. It's why law and order is so important. It's why accountability is so important. And frankly, it's why the United States Supreme Court has been such a miserable failure. And I think when people think about voting, they should also think about the importance of making sure that there is a Supreme Court that reflects law and order and the real values of democracy and accountability and actually law. Because here you go again, right now, we're seeing, and we'll talk about it later in the show, all of the MAGA lawsuits again with their lies, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and now you got the richest man in the world, or one of the richest men in the world, and Elon Musk's now going after Dominion voting with the lies. He's created a whole platform to spread every day. It seems like Midas Touch is rebutting a new lie. You know, Donald Trump doing events with people dressed up as firefighters in Scranton who actually are not firefighters. Doing an event in Michigan with auto workers for Trump. They're not auto workers. Going to a non-union shop and having signs that say union workers for Trump. Going to a purported black church filled with white MAGA supporters saying that it is a black church, when in fact it is actually all the white MAGA people who were bussed in to be there every single day. And it can be exhausting, but we're going to stay on top of it at the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF. But Popok, you want to comment on what you're seeing there with the Elon Musk factor right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be the undoing of Donald Trump. He's decided to outsource to Elon Musk, who's never run a get out the vote operation, the get out the vote operation for the Trump campaign. There's no other way to put it. They've decided that Elon Musk, with his $257 billion, his fake PACs, his 80 or 90 or $100 million in the waning days of this election, and with him going, wearing a mustard yellow trucker hat that says MAGA and sitting in Scranton, Pennsylvania for the next 27 days or 17 days now, whatever it is going to win the vote for Donald Trump. And regular Republicans, I guess they still exist, are scratching their head like, where is your field operation? Where are your field offices? Where are people knocking on doors with clipboards to get voter registration done, to get people to the polls? Where is that? You can't do it with Elon Musk showing up at a phony rally in a high school in Pennsylvania as if he were the candidate. You would have, like, when I saw that, I was like, is he? I know he's from South Africa. He can't run for president. Is he running for president? And so you have this weird conflation and this weird intersection of Elon Musk's narcissism and the fact that he thinks he can buy this election paying people $47 to somehow the bro vote to show up, with Donald Trump's own exhausted narcissism on full display. And that's not how you win an election. You win an election with shoe leather, with baby kissing, with handshaking, with earning the vote. That's what we're watching at the Democratic side. That's why Kamala Harris didn't show up at the Al Smith dinner, Chuckle Fest, because she's out earning your vote in Wisconsin and all the battleground states that matter. I mean, she inherited a race where she was behind, because Joe Biden was behind, in every major battleground state, and had okay money, but not FU or legal AF money in the bank to try to win an election. And 2 months later, Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris alone, running her campaign, has $1 billion in the bank and is ahead or statistically tied every place it matters in just 2 months. That is the polling that matters to me, not I'm 58 and I've been voting for 40 years. I've never gotten polled. Not we're not sure the black men are really going to vote for that's true, for Kamala Harris. Or, there seems to be some leakage in the female 28 to 32 category in one of the battleground states. This does not matter. What matters is every time the American people have had an opportunity to vote, since 2020, it has gone overwhelmingly in favor of Democrats and women's rights in places like Alabama. Like every special election, except for one, has gone for the Democrats. So when we have the actual opportunity to make our voice heard in donations, overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris, in voting, overwhelmingly for the Democrats. So I want to ignore the polls. But I think there is this pent up demand to vote for the Democrats and against Donald Trump that's just waiting to burst, and we're starting to see it, of course, in early voting. So I don't know why Donald Trump. Well, because he's a tired, sad old man, and he can't figure out how to win this election, and he's getting beat by Kamala Harris, who he thought he was only going to have to go after Joe Biden. Decided to outsource his entire operation in the waning days to Elon Musk. The last time we saw Elon Musk take over an operation that he didn't understand, he tanked Twitter, and it's losing tens of millions of dollars a day, in operations. Only one business is doing worse, and that's Truth Social for Donald Trump. So whatever the plan was, which I don't quite understand, I think when we're done and we're on election night and the day after election night, talking about the certification of the vote totals, I think that may be the final nail in Donald Trump's coffin, is how closely he's aligned with Elon Musk.
It's a great point that with all of these scams and with Elon Musk's intervention, to your point, money doesn't always translate to votes if it is not being spent in the right way. If you're just redoubling what you're doing on Twitter, which is repulsing people, and you're trying to campaign with that, it's actually going to backfire, and you need to have the institutional knowledge of where to find people. It's why I think it's always important. We do this now in all of the videos, but we'll do it right here, is to remind you that if you can early vote, it is so important for you to vote early versus voting on election day. Obviously, it's critical that you vote. I'd rather you vote on election day than not vote at all. But here's the thing. When you early vote, it takes your name off the get out the vote rolls so that the party can focus on lower propensity voters. Otherwise, they're spending massive amounts of money chasing you when you're going to vote.
That's a very good point. That's a very good
most important point, because lots of people go, I really want to be so patriotic. I want to go with my friends on election day because I just want to be there in person and speak with people on the lines. No, that's actually harmful. I mean, it's not as harmful as not voting by far, but it is better if you can early vote. And when you say, what can we do to help you at Legal AF and the Midas Touch Network, the most important thing you can do is help other people early vote who will be voting for democracy. Your kids, your grandkids, your cousins. As soon as this show ends, call them, remind them, follow up with them, follow back up with us in the comments that that's been done. Then we could all make a massive difference.
And one last thing on the second side of that coin, because that one I hadn't thought through. I know you've been on with some election polling experts recently, doing some great work on some of those videos you've done. The other side of that is it also frees you up if you early vote to go to a battleground state, because you don't have. This is the little thing that people don't realize. You don't have to be registered in a state in order to work outside the polls on election day to make sure there's no. I've worked outside the polls. I've worked inside the polls for the Democratic Party as lawyers for various candidates. I've also worked outside as a New York resident, flying to Florida on election day to make sure that people weren't being intimidated around the polls. That because you'll see MAGA come out and start scaring the crap out of people, and some people, I've seen it. They're like, no, I don't want to deal with this, and they turn around and they don't vote. So it's important, if you've already early voted, you can then get on the road and help in states get souls to polls and get people to vote, but you got to vote yourself first.
Absolutely. Let's talk, though, about this Judge Chutkan release of the records. The back and forth here, the initial brief that special counsel Jack Smith filed to say that Donald Trump should not have absolute immunity. First, Trump objected to the brief being made public. The brief was made public itself. There was obviously redactions in it, but we covered what was in the brief. Separately, there was an appendix that was about 1,889 pages, 1,900 pages long, with exhibits, documents, deposition testimony. I mean, this is evidence. When we talk about legal AF, we care about evidence and facts, and not just somebody making a spurious allegation, but okay, back it up. Show me where this person said it. Show me in the deposition. Show me the text messages, right? 1,900 pages. And to be clear, there's probably terabytes of evidence that could fill up skyscrapers throughout an entire city. But what Jack Smith's doing in this filing is going through those skyscrapers filled with the terabytes of documents and presenting what we like to call the hot docs, the hot documents, the 1,900 that just goes through the key portion of the deposition, not the full deposition. Just here are the main lines. Here are the main emails. So 1,900 pages of that form the appendix. Trump objected to it. Then Trump tried to threaten that he was going to huff and puff and blow the House down. He said, I'm going to take litigation options against you, Judge Chutkan. And she's like, be my guest. I'll give you 5 days to take legal action against me. I'm not sure what you're going to do. And then on the eve of the filing getting released, Trump was like, please, I need some more time. Stay it. Stop it. I have to think about something. And she's like, no, your time's up. What are you talking about? Documents released. How big of a deal is this, Michael Popok? And why don't we take it in two steps, because we're closing in on a commercial break. So why don't you start talking about the import? We'll take a break, and then you'll finish up with talking about the importance of
Well, I'll do it this way, and I do a deep dive on Legal AF MTN, which we have a link down as a companion to what we're doing right now. Let me do it this way. Let me tell you what it isn't, because some people are running around thinking that's all that Jack Smith has is 1,889 pieces of evidence against Donald Trump. And then you have the MAGA who's running. That's it. That's his case. There's no crime there. Look, he's only got. That's not the case. This is not a trial in a box. This isn't like highly concentrated trial just to add water. This is not the evidence that will be tried against Donald, or the bulk of the evidence that will be used against Donald Trump at a trial. Let's project into the trial, the courthouse for a moment. There, you're going to have hundreds of potential witnesses against Donald Trump. You're going to have tens of thousands of pages of evidence and emails and texts and audio recordings and video recordings and things being extracted from Donald Trump's own phones and laptops and that. This trial is going to go on for 6 months. So I wanted to make it clear. I want to do it this way because we've had some other work on the Midas Touch Network about this, about what this isn't. This isn't a mini trial. You can't just read it and go, oh, I get it. That's how they're going to try the case. No. This is 1,889 pages, the bare minimum of what Jack Smith, making his own calculation, believed he needed to provide to Judge Chutkan and ultimately to the United States Supreme Court to back every line and every argument made in the 165-page brief that he filed 2 weeks ago. And no more and no less. This is what that's why we have, and I went through it myself, as you joked, but you know me well from 4.5 years to 5 years together. From the 1,889 pages, this is what I think I found really interesting. This is not a trial. Having tried 40 cases in my career, this ain't a trial. This is a submission to the trial judge to make her immunity determination as to whether the superseding indictment that got issued by a grand jury smartly by Jack Smith after the immunity decision survives the immunity decision. That's it. So people are like, wow, that's interesting. It's all I got by Mike Pence, just those few highlighted pages from his memoir, so help me God. No. Where are all of the witness statements of all the, that's what we really wanted to see. Where's the grand jury testimony? Where's the witness statements of the witnesses for the prosecution? And there's not just 77 of those, which is what's numbered in the brief. There's hundreds of witnesses that aren't in this package because they're not part of the immunity decision. So I wanted to do before the break, I wanted to talk so you can tell your friends and family and those on the streets, that's all he's got. It's only for this immunity determination. The trial is much, much different, much more. There's going to be a terabyte with a T or more of data that's going to be presented to the jury through the skillful hands of the Department of Justice and the Special Counsel's Office and through the mouth of hundreds and hundreds of witnesses. Maybe we get it down to the top 50 or the top 80, plus a lot of things that are just Donald Trump's own words in his own tweets, in his own speeches that don't need any context. They'll just be coming straight into evidence. So I wanted to have that. I think that's a good way to do it before, and then we can pick it up after the break.
Let's do it. Let's take our last quick break of the show. As Michael Popok said, remember the Legal AF YouTube channel link is in the description below. You get really geeky on that channel. You know, people seem to really like it. They thought you were geeky, but this is next level. We'll be right back after a quick break.
I spend most of my day in front of a screen and a microphone, and this used to mean I spent a lot of my day sitting. The research on sitting for long periods has been linked with various conditions such as poor heart health, bad posture, diabetes, and the list goes on. This is why I love Uplift Desk and their ergonomic desks and chairs. A standing desk can help lower your risk of disease, improve your mood and focus, boost productivity, and increase your energy. I use my Uplift Desk every day. When I'm standing up thinking with a cup of joe about how to prepare for my next hot take or podcast episode, I'm not staring into space. It's my most productive ruminating and cogitating me time at my Uplift Desk. And only when I'm on my feet do my creative juices really start to flow. The option to move while I work promotes better circulation, which can reduce all types of different health risks and repetitive strains. Uplift Desk helps you build your custom dream desk by choosing from over 100 desktop choices and hundreds of accessories. Their desk configurator lets you build out a complete workstation with storage, seating, wire management. Listen, when I used it, I had my perfect dream standing desk that I've wanted for over 30 years configured in less than 10 minutes. I had loads of fun configuring my Uplift Desk, starting with picking my tabletop. I went with a beautiful walnut butcher block, added white legs and storage drawers, wheels for mobility, and a number of cool cable management and pop-up and power grommets for my perfect custom Uplift Desk. I especially like the different control options and memory settings that puts the desk at just the perfect height for me and lets my wife join in on the productive fun when she visits at the office too. We've got a special deal and it's exclusive to our audience. When you visit our link at upliftdesk.com/legalaf, you're gonna get 4 free accessories. Free same-day shipping, free returns with free shipping, and an industry-leading 15-year warranty that covers the entire desk, plus an extra discount off your entire order. That's upliftdesk.com/legalaf for a special offer, and it's only available at our link. Work better, live healthier with Uplift Desk. Creatine isn't just for the guys or athletes anymore. Whether you're a woman looking to tone, a guy looking to bulk, a sleep-deprived parent looking for an energy and cognitive boost, or a grandparent looking to maintain or build muscle, creatine gummies can help. Maybe you know you should be adding creatine to your wellness routine, but you've heard the myths about bloating and hair loss, or are afraid of the loading phase. The reality is, those myths are not backed by the science. Proper creatine supplementation through Create results in no bloating, no cramping, and no hair loss. I've found a new way to cut out that second or third cup of coffee in the morning, and it's through creatine. Trust me, I never would have believed it until I tried it, but I'm getting so much energy and focus from my favorite Create creatine gummies that next cortado is no longer calling my name. Create delivers creatine through gummies, not powders like other brands. Create gummies are tasty, no mess, efficient, easy to take, travel well, and there's no loading phase. Create's creatine gummies are NSF certified for sport, so athletes can take it without any worries about testing flags. Use CreaPure, They're third-party tested, made in the USA, vegan, non-GMO, and have 100% natural ingredients with 1.5 grams of creatine monohydrate per gummy. Create's gummies are convenient. Take them anywhere. And they taste great, so it's easy to stay consistent. So you get the long-term benefits of using creatine. Create comes in 4 fantastic flavors: orange, blue raspberry, watermelon, and sour green apple, a customer favorite. If you're like me, you take your health and wellness seriously and are looking for a safe extra boost. And with Create, I have found a simple gummy way to body health, and I can see the results. Get 30% off any subscription or one-time purchase of Create 90 count bags at trycreate.co/legalaf. That's trycreate.co/legalaf for 30% off your order.
Welcome back. Love those sponsors. The discount codes are in the description below. We use all of the stuff that you see there with those sponsors. Jordy tests them. We like them and love them, and so it's great, and it supports the growth of this platform. So Popok, a lot of legal developments before the election. We've got Special Counsel Jack Smith, the release of these files in the D.C. criminal case against Trump. We've got developments going on in Georgia, big election cases there with the chicanery, machinations, and let's just face it, just crimes that Trump and MAGA are trying to pull there. And then we've got some rulings in Florida. Break it all down for us.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap up what happened in D.C. One of my favorite lines that we didn't get to talk about tonight was Judge Chutkan's line when she refused to she had a couple of dripping sarcastic moments when she finally hit the publish button and ordered the clerk to publish the 1,889 pages, which she had already seen, and they had already seen. This is just the question of what was going to end up in the public domain that you and I and the media could see. And, breathing down her neck, rightly so, in a free society, is the free press. 22 of them, I'm not sure Midas is in there yet, but we should be, filed a separate suit with Judge Chutkan to make sure to keep her honest, so to speak, in the release of as much to the public as possible in our public justice system. And so she has them, that coalition of 22 media organizations, to make sure she gets it right, which is good. It's an exercise of our First Amendment, public access, and a free press all in one place. And it shows that it still operates correctly in a non-Trump America, and that's a good thing. My 2 favorite lines is when she wrote her order when he finally got around on the 7th day to file his, I'm done evaluating litigation options, Your Honor. Here's what I got. Can I have more time? Can you just sign? Let's have symmetry. Donald Trump said, I'll do an appendix. They'll do an appendix. We'll do both appendices, but we'll do it after the election. Can we do that? That would be better. Otherwise, the jury in the future, maybe they'll hear this, not that. And there's no symmetry. There needs to be symmetry. A concept that is completely inconsistent with federal litigation practice. We don't have symmetry. As I joked on one of my hot takes on Legal AF, I said, it's not like, the prosecutor and the defense lawyer stand up at the same time and give their closing arguments to the jury. We don't do symmetry. We do in order. You go first, I go first. And she had already she had already sided with Donald Trump on a couple of items. Of course, he never gives her credit for that. So she said, you want 2 briefs instead of 1 brief? I'll give you 2 briefs. The prosecutors, you get 2 briefs, and Trump, you get 2 briefs. And you want an appendix, you have an appendix. You want 185 pages, up to 185, you have 185 pages. But you got to do it on time. You want to delay? You want to do all your dirty work? You want to do it after the election and not before? I don't think that's a great thing for you to do. But go ahead. You want till after the election? Take till after the election. But then she reminded him in the order. She said, first of all, that's your evaluating litigation options. The option that you came up with is to ask me for more time? No. And then at the end, she said, or in the middle, she said, and by the way, you want symmetry? You want to get your word, your message, your out to the voters, if that's important to you? Go ahead. You can file early. You've asked till the 14th of November, but you could work all weekend, and on Monday you could file. Lord knows I've done that. Ben, you've done that. How many times we've been told by a federal judge? That's a very interesting point, Mr. Popok. Why don't you have a brief on my desk on Monday morning? on a Friday at 5. I've had that happen to me more than once. But they're not going to do that because they have no intention of doing that. They rather have Trump do a mean tweet or a rally comment that can't be fact checked, or go into a friendly confines of a Fox organized event, rather than actually refute any evidence. And so once it came out, I quickly realized, first of all, 80% of what was released, about 80%, is completely redacted, meaning black screens. We don't know what's behind it. I assume there's some grand jury testimony back there, and there's some witness statements. So that's why there's always a limit to what we can really get, as you say, geek out on about what's in the 1,889 pages, because I only really got to see about 400 pages. And even that, not everything was interesting. But I get it. I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to help the judge put things into buckets, and to argue that none of the conduct that's in the superseding indictment, zero, is immune. That's what we're watching in plain sight. So, boom. All that's going to be done, just to manage expectations, after the election. There's going to be filings after the election, presumably by Trump, and a hearing and a ruling. And we're going to be looking at a trial. If this survives, Donald Trump doesn't get elected, and the appeals don't go haywire, a trial next summer would be the earliest I think we would see this. But we would see a trial next summer. If you want to see it, if that excites you, and you want to see a trial next summer, do what Ben said earlier. Vote blue, get everybody else to vote, and vote early, and help other people vote all the way up until election and through election day. That's really important, because if he gets in, we know what happens. He fires the special prosecutor, he dismisses the case, and he tries to put everybody in jail and pardons the rest. So you have that going on. Now let's fast forward quickly to, I'll do Florida and then Georgia. In Florida, you've got Judge Walker, who we've reported on before, who sits in the federal court in the north part of Florida in Tallahassee, which is next to where the governor resides. And he took on, once again, the fascist tendencies of Governor DeSantis, who decided for the third time in 3 years that he would have a full frontal assault on the First Amendment. He did it originally 3 years ago during the Black Lives Matter protests, where he tried to squelch and suppress peaceful protests on the streets of Florida. And then Judge Walker, who's the chief judge in the Northern District of Florida, said, you can't do that. A peaceful protest is part of our democracy, citing to cases from the 1950s of the lunch counter protests by Black Americans following the lead of Martin Luther King to sit at lunch counters to protest racial inequality. And he cited those cases and said, and your anti-protest law is unconstitutional, and he struck it from the books, and that was confirmed and affirmed by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Fast forward to a year and a half ago, you have Walker having to cite to George Orwell, the first line in George Orwell's book 1984, in order to when DeSantis passed anti-woke statutes to try to keep critical race theory and other teachings away from college students and high school students in this anti-woke. And he said, that is Orwellian. You're not allowed to tell professors what they can and can't teach and keep us all in the dark. And he quoted the first line of 1984, which is, on a cold morning, the clock struck 13. The clock tower struck 13. And this is what this law is about. It's about Orwellian suppression of thought. So I was not surprised when the headline read, and having read the order, that Judge Walker said, let me make it simple for the state of Florida in going after a new law in which they are trying to keep off the air ads that are in favor of Amendment number 4 in Florida, which is the constitutional amendment to put into and have recognized in the Florida Constitution a woman's right to choose. And it has to pass by 60%, 60%, supermajority in Florida to pass. And they ran an ad. The pro-Amendment 4 people ran an ad of a real-life person, not an actor, who's a woman who suffered from brain cancer, who was denied the right to an abortion, despite the medical necessity, health of the mother. And DeSantis hated it. And because, oh, that's not true. That wouldn't happen. It did happen to this person. And she has a First Amendment right to tell other people about it. So he threatened the TV stations in Florida. He had his Surgeon General puppet, Adapo, who's a vaccine denier, COVID denier guy. He had his office, and his attorney general sent cease and desist letters and threatened people with jail time and losing their licenses if they ran that ad, which required the FCC chairperson, the Federal Communications Commission, to say, we're in charge of licenses. That's First Amendment, core political speech. You do you. And forget what Florida's telling you. The attorney general, the general counsel for the Surgeon General who wrote the letter resigned because he says, I can't do this. I can't write cease and desist letters like this. My conscience is panged by it. He resigned off of it, and it went up in an emergency application to Judge Walker to stop the threats by the state against broadcast television airing First Amendment core political speech in support of an amendment. And he started it with, let me make this simple for the state of Florida. It's the First Amendment, stupid. He actually wrote that. Now, it stands on the shoulders of all these other cases that I just built to, where he has been the arch nemesis. He's been the Superman to DeSantis's Lex Luthor, like the entire time that he's been. Thank God Walker exists. And he gets affirmed every time at the 11th Circuit because he's right about the First Amendment. That ad needs to run. It's true. And as we've learned already, even Jack Smith has had to admit it, the First Amendment allows you to say even false things. I mean, Jack Smith goes out of his way to say Donald Trump telling the people that there was outcome determinative fraud in the election, even though false, he's allowed to say that. Just as she's allowed to tell her authentic truth about having brain cancer and not being able to get an abortion of her choice. And so that's come down. And then we have finally these, and I'm going to make it really simple here for us. It looked confusing at the time. There's a number of cases brought by Democrats and Republicans who support the Constitution in Georgia to counterbalance all the crazy lawsuits. And the efforts, frankly, since 2020 of MAGA to get inside of election offices, state boards of election, and county election. While we've been sleeping a little bit as Democrats, they've been trying to take over school boards, election boards, county election boards, state the attorney general's offices, secretary of state's offices to get ready for 2024. And then it's like the sleeper cell that's been activated. And that's why the Democrats, rightly so, including Democrats led by, lawyers led by Mark Ellis, are fighting back with lawsuits. There's 6 of them in Georgia alone filed by Democrats and by an organization, by a former well, I think he's still a Republican. He's just not MAGA, a former Georgia representative. I think his name is Scott Turner, I love the name of this organization, Ben, Eternal Vigilance Action. They brought a case that ended up before Judge Cox in Fulton County. Another case ended up before Judge McBurney. To answer the question, shouldn't they have been consolidated since they addressed almost the same issues? Yes, but they weren't. And so you had 2 judges a day apart, both totally announced that the new state election board rules passed by the 3 MAGA members of the state election board in September to try to impact this election in 2 different ways. Vote counting and vote certification. Vote counting, let's have a hand count of every precinct and every voting machine in Georgia in 48 hours. How about we don't? I don't want a lot of people's hands on my ballot before it ends up being officially certified by the election officials. How about we don't do that? So hand counting was a way to throw sand in the gears on the vote counting issue. And on the certification issue, to help when there was only a MAGA in minority on a county board, but to be able to do maximum mischief, the rules that they passed, there were 7 of them in September. 2 of them were reasonable inquiry and reasonable examination, allowing any one member of a county board, meaning one member on one MAGA in Fulton County, for instance, to be able to say, I want to see all the docs, bring in all the ballots. I want to go play with them for a week, and maybe I'll certify and maybe I won't. So those 2 cases went up in 2 different postures. Here we're geeking out. McBurney gets the case on an emergency injunction application. Okay, so he's got a temporary record and he's got to do 2 more steps before he gets to a final judgment. He looks at the rules and goes, there's not enough time for this. You can't do hand counting where nobody's trained with 18 days to go. You may have had a good reason for this rule. I'm not quite sure what it was, but you can't do hand counting. So he puts a pin in it. But the next day, Judge Cox, like on another floor in the same courthouse, he says, I'm not on a temporary injunction basis. I'm on a full trial. I have my record. I've got my witnesses. I've got my briefs. I can go to final judgment. And I declare that that all 7 of the rules passed by he didn't say MAGA, the MAGA election board in Georgia, all 7 are invalid, unconstitutional, and void because they didn't have the power to do that. He used this phrase. He said, they showed up one day on September the 20th and met, maybe not even in a properly noticed meeting, put a crown on their head and declared themselves Napoleon. You can't do that. Maybe the state legislature can do that, the General Assembly in Georgia, but you can't do that and change all these rules of the road in the middle of the game. No. And he wrote all in caps that only Donald Trump could love. He wrote in his order, unconstitutional, illegal, and void, and all precinct managers and all county employees are ordered to ignore the rules. Final judgment, signed Judge Cox. As of this live, the Georgia Republicans, of course, want to take an immediate appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court, skipping the intermediary court in between. It's up to the Georgia Supremes to decide whether they want to get involved and whether they're going to take this directly or they're going to require an intermediate appeal for I think it's the first that sits over Atlanta. They don't have a lot of time here. My gut is, I could be wrong. Georgia, even though Supremes are dominated by Republican-nominated justices, I don't think they're going to allow these particular rules to get rolled out, especially when the Republican Attorney General of the state is against it, the Republican governor is against it, and the Republican Secretary of State is against it. So, but we're going to watch it, and we'll have to see what the next move is. If they take it up directly on the limited record that they have, they'll have to make a ruling very, very quickly, because if they're going to rule rules are imposed, people got to get trained. People got to get, election workers have to know how to apply these things. If they say, nope, go back down and go do it at and have it come up from the other court, I think we're completely out of time. But this is just an example. I'll leave it on this, Ben. This is just an example of what we have to do. Okay. And that's a great thing about having court accountability with us over on Legal AF channel. We have to start as Democrats and as progressives and as people that care about, as patriots, the Constitution and the rule of law. We got to start getting a little bit more ruthless, not violate law, but to enforce law. You said we're a law and order party now. Yes, we got to start getting a little more sharp-elbowed and a little more ruthless in how we fight back against the Project 2025s and all these lawsuits. So we're not asleep at the switch. And I think the enthusiasm that you've built with your brothers on this network, and that it's extended by extension to Legal AF, we got to take that action and take it into the streets and take it into the courthouses and make sure that we don't, because we took our eye off the ball, that we let our democracy go down the drain.
Look, enthusiasm, of course, is great, but you got to translate enthusiasm into action. So here's my call to action to you. As I said in the middle of the program, I'm going to say it right now. It is critical that you early vote. When you early vote, your name gets taken off the get out the vote rolls, and it allows the party, it allows the pro-democracy community to identify lower propensity voters to get them to vote versus chasing you down if you're going to vote anyway. It is critical. Lots of people go, well, look, I want to wait on election day because that's how I want to show my patriotism. I want to be there on the day itself. Vote early because it helps bank the votes. It helps build the firewall. It helps with an organized political movement and party that the pro-democracy, Democratic, and classic Republican joining forces together are. It's critical. Share your stories in the comments below about how you early voted. Confirm you did in the comments below, and let us know who you've encouraged to early vote as well, and confirm that they early vote. Was it one of your kids, a grandkid, a cousin, a friend, a neighbor who hasn't voted before? Please share your stories in the comments below and share this message that we are making here about the importance of early voting to others. It is so, so critical. Also, support our sponsors if you can. They support the growth of our show. The discount codes are in the description below. Use those discount codes. We love our sponsors. You can support us as well at patreon.com/legalaf, patreon.com/legalaf. And one of the fastest growing YouTube channels right now is that Legal AF YouTube channel on YouTube. Just search Legal AF. Help Michael Popok, who's leading that channel with some of the best legal scholars. Today, you've got Judge Ludwig on there. You've got Court Accountability on there. You've got Dina Dahl on there. You've got Karen Friedman-Agnifilo on there. Some great, great legal scholars, and it's only growing and expanding. We are building an infrastructure for the future. You, Midas Mighty, you legal AFers are the critical part of that future, and it's so important that we turn that enthusiasm into action. So I know you're ready. When this show ends, the work begins. So please pick up that phone, start calling people, emailing people, texting people, and put in the comments what you did. Thank you everybody so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Legal AF.